This episode is brought to you by SS&C Mineralware. Are you managing mineral assets and feeling overwhelmed? Unsure if you're getting paid what you're owed? SS&C Mineralware is here to simplify the management of your minerals, royalties, and non-operated working interests. Mineralware's out-of-the-box features give you the tools you need to visualize and keep track of all of your assets in one place. Mineralware lets you know in seconds where your interests are, what's active, what acreage is open for lease, and if you're getting paid what you're owed. With Mineralware, you can even automate your revenue and JIB processing and eliminate tedious manual data entry, allowing you to focus on more pressing issues. Thousands of mineral owners rely on Mineralware to keep their mineral management simple, automatic, and all in one place. Take control of your mineral assets today with SS&C Mineralware. To see a demo, you can visit their website at www.mineralware.com. That's mineralware.com. Welcome to the Mineral Rights Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Sands, and today I'm bringing you a conversation that is a little different than our normal deep dive into minerals and royalties. My guest is Jessey Kwong, co-founder of Pebble REI and the host of the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast. Now, you might wonder what land investing has to do with mineral rights, and you'll find out there are more connections than you'd think. Jessey's platform, Pebble REI, is a comprehensive land acquisition platform now used by both surface land investors as well as mineral rights investors. And Jessey's story was really interesting, and he shared some fun facts, like his very first land deal was closed while sitting on a toilet through Facebook Marketplace. That $500 investment turned into $5,000 profit in just a few weeks. So in my conversation with Jessey, we explore the parallels between land and mineral rights investing, which both involve direct mail campaigns, county records research, due diligence processes, and portfolio management. And it's a lot to keep track of, if you don't have a system to automate it. Jessey shares some real numbers along with insights on startup costs and whether you need a real estate license to get started in buying land. So let's dive into my conversation with Jessey Kwong about land investing, business systems, and the surprising connection to the world of mineral rights.
Are you ready to make the most of your oil and gas mineral rights? Welcome to the Mineral Rights Podcast. Get the knowledge and resources you need to manage your minerals and royalties. Here is your host, Matt Sands.
Jessey, thanks so much for joining me on the Mineral Rights Podcast.
Yeah, happy to be here. I didn't expect I would end up on a podcast like this, although there are parallels with certain things that we do. But yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And, I was on your show here recently, and so I'd love to talk about your podcast and what you do there. But before we get into that, so we're going to talk today about land investing and some of the tools and tips for people that are interested in learning more about this asset class. But before we do that, can you tell us a little bit about your background and, where did you go to school? Where did you grow up? Those types of things.
Yeah, I grew up in the 51st state of America. I'm up here in the Pacific Northwest in Vancouver, British Columbia. I went to school for out here at UBC for business, and I went to art school afterwards. I'm sort of a creative person. I don't know if you can tell with all my toys and all this stuff. I fell in love with design, and that's really where I started my entrepreneurial journey. Ended up doing a completely different business, coming out of working intern at an agency or a design agency, and then I was in the beauty industry. And then I fell upon real estate investing. Now, I was interested in real estate investing out here in Canada, but it just didn't seem like a sustainable or scalable sort of growth. And I wanted to see what else was out there. Found out in your neck of the woods, you guys can do a lot. There's a lot of public information out there. And so I started house flipping. And then I fell upon this little niche called land investing or land flipping. And I forgot, I spoke to some people that I would frequently head down to Washington and meet other investors and whatnot. Anyway, so I learned about land investing, and I thought this was interesting. I was still very new to the world of real estate and property and all this. I mean, at that point in time, I remember I didn't even know what a county was. Now, I was told that I had to get data from the county of all the people that own land. And I thought the county was, I watched a lot of Bugs Bunny growing up. It was like where the sheriff would sit at with his little shotgun, on his little rocking chair where the county jail was. And that's sort of what I had imagined. And anyway, so I started interacting with counties and found out I can get data and market to these properties and send them, whether it's letters or call them and ask about their property and make an offer on it. Literally did that. I remember sending out, I still have my first letter here, by the way. I printed it out, but I sent 500 of these out to somewhere in Bend, Oregon. And I ended up acquiring 3 properties for $500 a piece and flipped them a couple weeks later for $5,000 a piece. And I was like, okay. I remember getting these properties. I was really nervous talking to these owners. I knew nothing about it. I was just like pretending I knew what I was talking about. They didn't really want to sell, but ultimately, you have a conversation with them. You sort of build a little bit of rapport, and they're like, all right, you know what? Sure, I'll sell it, because they don't want to pay taxes. They couldn't do anything on it. Mind you, these properties were zoned to do nothing. It was off the side of a highway. They were landlocked. They were desert lots. I think it was like 5 acre or 1 acre squares out there. Anyways, I just literally bought that with cash. Had no idea what I was doing. I think I I submitted something to the county. I forgot at that time what it was. And then I listed it on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace, out of all places. And I had 3 people reach out to me. I remember I was heading to the gym, and then I got somebody message me, hey, I want to go to that property this weekend. Can I camp on it to see what it's like? I'm like, camp on it? I mean, do you look like, okay, cool. I guess people want to do that when there's nothing there. It's like dry, barren, desert, flat land. And then the second person said the same thing. They said, hey, I was like, okay, well, we have to arrange a time. Somebody's going to be there on this day. And then the third person, by the time I got home from the gym, I remember this very vividly. I was sitting on the toilet and I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I don't know. I just felt like this has got to be a joke. And so finally the third person messaged me. He said, hey, I want your property. I'd like to visit that on Monday or Sunday afternoon or something like that. And I said, oh, there's going to be, a couple other people coming by to the property. So maybe let's just stagger this. He said, hey, don't let anybody come. I'm going to offer you what you're asking for. And I was like, oh, okay. And I completed a sale on the toilet. And the rest is sort of history. That's sort of, I mean, I got a couple of these lots done in record time. And I started sending out more mailing, and I had my ups and downs with running a business with land flipping, but that's where it sort of all started. But one of the things that I sort of got ahead was with, I had a website. And so I had a lot of web design background at that time. And I built a, basic landing page for somebody to come in and, if they got my mailer, it would say, hey, go to my website and submit your property to me if you're interested in getting a cash offer. And in my group, in this Facebook group that I was part of, I told people, they came through my website, and we had sort of an informal mastermind group, and a few of them wanted to know how, what I did to set up the website. I gave some advice, and then I started to get into helping people with their websites. And I was like, okay, this is cool. I love doing stuff online. I'm interested in land investing, and that's sort of where it all started. Started building an audience just like you with a podcast, and then ended up building a full-on platform to run your land business. I met my co-founder about 8-9 months later. He had the early version of what we currently have now, which is a platform that makes it very easy for you to get a list of properties, say from the county or wherever data source you are getting your list from, bring it into the platform. You can start your marketing right away. You can start sending out mailing. It'll track those leads. You can generate documents, generate deeds, contracts, offers, whatever. Because we're dealing now with thousands and thousands of property records, sort of track all of that in our platform called Pebble. But anyways, that's sort of my little backstory of getting into land.
Very interesting. Well, Facebook Marketplace of all places, and ironically enough, I'm actually going to sell some bike parts here as soon as we're done with this interview. I'm meeting a guy to sell some of that. And this is the first. This summer was really the first year that I've gotten into Facebook Marketplace. I've sold stuff on Craigslist, usually, lots of bike stuff. It's real easy to buy and sell bikes. I like to cycle and, always looking at new bikes and selling old ones and whatnot. And that's always been the thing. My wife's like, everybody's in Facebook Marketplace now. You need to go and list it there. And so I've been selling a bunch of funny, spring cleaning stuff on Facebook of all places.
Yeah, I love doing spring cleaning on Facebook Marketplace. But funny enough, you mentioned Craigslist because I also listed properties on Craigslist at that time. And so this is one of the weird things about land investing. Like, it seems to work. Like, we can offload properties, get deals done, especially on the smaller lots on places like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. Now, Craigslist for a while had banned real estate transactions, but now they allow it again. But yeah, we hung out there. We got not only just Marketplace, but we got into buy and sell groups. So this was really interesting too. We would join, I would join all the buy and sell groups within that were active within Bend or within Oregon or whatever the area that I'm working on. And when I was in that area and I had properties, I would list it in those buy and sell groups. So Facebook also not only has Marketplace, but for yourself, Matt, you may want to find a buy and sell group just for your local area, and they may even niche it down to just bike, people who are interested in bikes or outdoor activity sales groups. So that was interesting, and it's still an area that we, some of us still sell our land through. So
yeah, we'll have to talk about that here in a little bit. Some tips for those that want to get into the land investing space. But yeah, for sure, those niching it down to find the people that are looking for that specific thing, and in this case, maybe land or haven't looked at mineral rights. That's another thing that, as you were talking, piqued my interest. I wonder if there are minerals, a property that have minerals with them or whatever. Or maybe it's land and it has minerals, like we've talked about on your show, or just mineral rights. So yeah, it's something to look at.
There's tons of people selling land on Marketplace. So definitely. Not just Marketplace, because Marketplace, you can only search your local area. So you got to start joining the Facebook groups. And there are Facebook groups just for land in this specific county or just this specific state or just this specific city. So you just have to be resourceful and look for those Facebook they're called buy and sell groups. But they're great. They've got a lot of property now.
Cool. Oh, awesome. Well, and you mentioned you started a podcast. Can you talk about the genesis of that and talk a little bit about your podcast, the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast? And tell about the show. What kind of information do you share with your listeners, guests you have on, those types of things?
Yeah, well, we just had you, Matt, on. We haven't published that episode as of this right now, as of recording. But basically, if you're ever interested in land investing, I happen to be in a very unique position where it's funny in the world of land investing, it's very cliquey. There's a lot of these gurus and coaches in the space where they'll teach you and I don't mean that in a sort of a negative way. I think it's really good to sort of go through some sort of training. Or go through some sort of coaching, but it also leaves a lot of people tunnel vision. They only sort of know what's going on in that community. And so because I don't teach land investing, all I make sure for land investors to make sure they can actually get their business up and running and start getting marketing out there and start acquiring properties. That's all I care for. I get a chance to bring in everybody from all sorts of different land flipping background. And so that's where the podcast comes into play. I get to talk to people about maybe a new strategy that they're trying out, or maybe an old strategy they're trying out. It's funny because we've seen I've been a part of the community for the last 6-7 years now, and things change over time. Marketing methods change, and the kind of lots that we're looking for. For a while, a lot of people were looking for bigger lots so they could subdivide and force appreciation on that property and make even more. Now, some people are going back to smaller lots, and so there's a lot of creativity in the world of land investing. I always say, because I get to speak to everybody from all sorts of different, approaches and education within land, it's like everything works and everything does not work. Some people will say, no, this won't work, but I can find somebody else that says, yeah, it works very well. some people who swear by certain things. So it's really interesting, the podcast. And I try to tell my guests, listen, don't get the shiny ball syndrome here. Listen to one thing. If it resonates with you, give it a shot. And the beautiful thing about land investing, maybe they're also involved with mineral rights, but they want to get into land investing. It's up to you how much you want to do. Maybe you only want to acquire a certain amount a year, or maybe you only want to do a certain amount of deals a year, or hit a certain revenue goal. It's fun like that. A lot of people who have W-2s, or also, working with different sort of asset classes, maybe only want to do a little bit of land, or maybe they're partnering with other land investors. They don't want to actually be doing, they just want to fund deals. They want to supply the capital. There's a lot of ways you can sort of approach land flipping. And for myself personally, I don't do the day-to-day land flipping. I now fund deals, but that's the furthest extent now I get involved to, because I'm just so busy building a software platform. But coming back to the podcast itself, again, I get to speak to a lot of different people, and from people who are within the States, or people like myself who work outside of the country. I have two sisters. They've come on a couple times now. One lives in the Philippines, and the other one lives in Denver. And they do great with their land business, and they just like to work in their little area that they know very well. And one of the sisters loves to just travel, and that's her goal. And she always wants to be working, from her laptop, and with whatever sort of in sort of whatever country she wants to be in. You don't actually need to be in the state that you're working out of. Again, I'm up here in Canada. When I started, COVID pretty much hit soon after, and we could get deals done all remotely. I've never even been Bend, Oregon myself. So anyways, so that's what the podcast is all about. Different stories of different people running their land businesses.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm sure that really is helpful in like learning about this space and hearing about what others are doing, and tips and what they learned and what not to do, I guess, is the other side of that. But as you're getting started, if you're interested in getting into land investing, what are some of the different types of opportunities that are out there? Can you talk about what does that typical land deal look like, and where do you start looking? I mean, the country is huge. Presumably we're talking about people looking in the United States for buying land, but like, where should people start to look? I mean, is there any sort of starting place if somebody's interested? And what do these types of deals look like?
I'll sort of walk you through. It's very interesting. I mean, when I first started, I'm one of those guys that just like, I'm just going to go and figure out on the go. And there's some people who want to be very analytical. And one of the advice I got from a long time ago is just like, listen, work out of an area where there's activity. So all I did was, I think I Googled some website of selling land in a state that I wanted to work out of, because I don't know why Oregon at that time, because I went to Portland, and I don't know, like sometimes I'll take road trips out there. So I was like, I only know Oregon and Washington well. So I was like, oh, why don't I try Oregon? There seems to be land out there. And I saw some people selling land out there. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start there. Now, there are so many ways of finding an area to start out from, but we typically pick a county. Pick a county. I won't go through the different ways, but there's a great software, a friend of ours, Sumner, it's called Land Insights. It's sort of got heat maps, and they sort of look at things like sell-through rates, how long things stay on the market for. And it's really cool. There's also another one called AI Land Deals with a Z. That one's really cool too. They're also a user of ours, and they've sort of started a data system where they're looking at areas where the assessed value is much lower than the market value. So they're sort of scraping data off of stuff like Zillow, and then they've presented it in a heat map where you can zoom in to specific counties, and like it'll have a green light or a red light or a yellow light. If it's green, means there's a big discrepancy between the assessed value and the market value. That gives you a lot more negotiation room to acquire that piece of property, because you know what you're going to be able to sell that for. And so you can buy these lists of data. Now, a lot of us will just go to generic platforms like DataTree by First American, or there's a bunch of these data list providers. And we'll just choose a county, run maybe we only want to target properties between 1 to 10 acres with, That's typically what most people do, unless they're getting really hyper targeted with certain things. That's the first step, getting your list. And that's sort of like, it can be an art form. It can be, whatever, I'm just going to go for it. And you can find luck both ways. And some people get really hung up on the data side. I've seen a lot of people sort of get stuck in that analysis paralysis and, not be able to pull the trigger for years. And then they're finally coming back to me again, like, okay, I'm finally ready to get started. I'm like, dude, it's been like 2 years. You lost so many opportunities with doing deals. So that's the first thing of getting started. The next thing you have to do is get marketing out there. Nothing starts until getting marketing out there. This is really funny. A few years ago, it was the first time we helped the mineral rights company do the same thing. I don't know where they got their data from, but they had a list of properties, and they were also getting their marketing out there, just saying, hey, I forgot what their letters said, but they were looking for properties to acquire. And it's the same thing with us. We're going to say, hey, we're interested in making an offer on your property. Sometimes people even price it. They will run it through pricing and say, hey, there's tools to help you do that. I think Land Insights is one of them that might help you do that. Or people might just price by the acre, maybe a few $100s per acre or something like that, and put that in the letter. And so I'm going to sort of shamelessly plug Pebble in here. What Pebble makes this very easy is you can just upload your list, and then it'll merge all that into a letter. You can design this really nice letter, very catchy, and then that gets sent out to owners, and those owners will get those letters, and then they'll either call back or not, and if they're interested, they'll reach out to you, and then from there, you're starting your due diligence. I'm sure this is very familiar for you guys in mineral rights. You're going to start looking at certain things. So we're going to look at road access, elevation, is it buildable? Is there resources on there? Wetlands and flood zones are another couple of things that we want to look at. And that's pretty much it. We'll then just go ahead and make an offer. And then if they accept it, great, we'll go to title. If not, then we'll continue to negotiate if it's worth negotiating. Once you own that property, you can do a couple things. You can turn around and flip it right away, like I've done in the past. You can do stuff to that property. Maybe you want to put access into that property. Maybe you want to, maybe there's minerals under the ground and look into it. Maybe there are resources above the ground. Maybe you want to clean up the property. Maybe you want to chop it up and subdivide that and go through zoning and all that kind of stuff. There is a lot you can do. And typically when you're just getting started, I like to say, turn it around, flip it, and prove to yourself the model works. Because a lot of people doubt this model. I got very lucky, I will say, my first few deals, because my next few months I didn't get any deals done after that. But that's pretty much it. It's sort of this life cycle of buying, doing something with that property, and then offloading it. I don't even remember the original question you asked me, Matt, but that's what it looks like at a high level.
That's perfect. Yeah, I just was curious to hear about the types of deals, or what does that typical deal look like? And
I can sort of talk about deal sizes, what that sort of
and that's good too. Yeah, do you need to be like super rich, or can you get into this with a few $1,000s? Like, what does that look like?
Oh man, this is such an interesting topic. So when I first started, a lot of like the educators taught people to just do the small lots, and quick flips. Buy for 500, flip for a couple thousand. And then people started to feel like, okay, there's too many people doing this. We want to do like bigger lots now. And then, so people are picking up bigger lots where they're like 20 acres, 30 acres, 50 acres. And obviously that requires more capital. You're doing a lot less marketing. It's a lot less time consuming, but you're working a lot less properties and you're really banking on a big one. But it isn't uncommon to hear somebody say pick up a property for 40, 50 and get, double to 3 times the amount of that property. And you only need to do a couple of these properties. So there is a lot of margin to be made on those big ones. But recently, again, I've heard people come back to smaller properties. So I had a young fella anyways, he came onto my podcast. He was the one I recorded after you, Matt. And he's just doing small little properties, picking up for a few grand, and he's looking at cabin sort of camping style properties, and he's doing 2 properties a week for the entire year. So that he does about 100 properties a year, and he nets over 7 figures. So it is a pretty good return on. But I mean, he's got a team, but it's a small team. It's him, 2 assistants, and 2 guys that help him sell. And all he just worries about is getting his mailers out, and that's it. Now, I'm oversimplifying right now. Okay, there are always going to be nuances to things, but it really depends. Do you want to work smaller deals? Do you want to work larger deals? It's up to your heart's content. So it's one of those things where it's up to you. But this is a deal maker's game. You are making deals all the time. But what makes it very scalable is that it is possible to scale this, and you can do this at volume if you'd like to, which is nice. I used to describe land investing as almost like glorified e-commerce. I don't know if anybody here runs an e-commerce business or has ever. I have in the past. I've done all sorts of stuff, but you're really sourcing your product and then you're turning it around to do some marketing to flip it, right? And you spend the time on some of the marketing. And really, what does marketing mean? Well, getting some nice videos done, getting some nice drone footage and some pictures, and writing nice things about it, because a lot of these people end up with properties, they don't know what to do with it. I don't know how many times I've heard they wanted to own, and them and their spouse wanted to build a lakeside property or have a cabin. That just never happened. For most people, it never happens. And so they're paying on taxes, or maybe they died and they passed it on to the kids, and now they're all paying tax on it. And everybody in the family is just fighting over it. They just want it out of there. They don't want to deal with it anymore. There are a ton of these people, and some of them get so complicated. It's all about just sort of building that relationship. So there is trust there that you can help them with their property, helping them offload that property. So anyways, in terms of deal sizes, like I said, when I first started, picked mine up for 500 and flipped mine for 5,000. Now finding those kind of deals nowadays maybe is not as common, but apparently people are getting them done. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, that's very interesting. I guess like anything, when you're just getting started, it's probably good to start small. And then if you mess up, then the consequences are lower and you're not betting the farm on it. And, exactly. Obviously what we're talking about today shouldn't be construed as investment advice to anybody listening. Do your own due diligence, do your research, talk to your financial advisor. But, it's always interesting to learn about different ways we can diversify and invest. And I know for folks that own minerals and royalties, we really like the real property aspect of it, the fact that you can deed it to your kids or, hand it down just like land. And, a lot of times you maybe have gotten exposed to the mineral side of things because you inherited some land. And so you're like, oh, I really like this. I enjoy owning land. I like the surface side of things, but I really just want to keep the minerals. I wanted to sell. Maybe I sold the surface. I inherited the farm, and we live in the city now, and we just wanted to keep the minerals. My grandpa said never sell the mineral rights, so I didn't. And then I sold the surface. And you've already sort of done what you're talking about, Jessey, in terms of that whole process of I went through and marketing the property and selling it. Maybe you had help from a realtor, and maybe that's
you could.
So talking about that, like the people that are getting started and like requirements, right? So in the mineral side, we don't have to generally have a real estate license in order to buy and sell mineral rights. They're kind of excluded from that. Can you talk about from a land investment side, can you start out not having a real estate license? And
most people don't have the real estate. Most people don't. I don't know if there's actually any advantage. Well, I guess you could list it on the MLS, but most of us are doing what we call off-market deals. So we're looking for properties on off-market deals, and we're selling them ourselves. We're listing them on our own websites. We might list them on, like I said, marketplace. You might have build what we call a buyer's list. Every time that somebody comes to your website, they're interested or message you, you're going to collect their email address because these people are interested in land. Or more recently, people are working and partnering with real estate agents. So we call them sometimes land-specific agents, but they're just real estate agents that know the area, and they're part of your team. They're going to make a little bit off that as well. And then you never even have to worry about every time you just acquire a piece of property, you just pass it off to your real estate agent, and they're going to sell it for you. Most of us, I would say 85 to 90% of us are not real estate agents. The only thing, I mean, do you even need a business entity? You probably want one. But when I first started, I had nothing. I just did it on my own name because there's not a lot of, again, this is just from experience, there doesn't seem to be a lot of risk with buying dirt. So take it for what it's worth. You can, a lot of people do start with just their own name before even, forming a business entity to run this business.
Very interesting. Well, that's very helpful. Yeah, I guess it's like, a for sale by owner type situation.
Exactly.
You don't necessarily need a realtor. Maybe you'd have a higher success rate, or it'll be quicker.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, you can sell your home without needing a realtor. So yeah, why not?
You can sell it. You can even do what a lot of us do is seller finance it. So basically, across 5 years, they pay you monthly for that property. You're going to charge interest on it, and you come up with these terms. And if they, fail payment, you can recollect that property and sell it again. And that's happened to me. And so there's a lot of creative ways, again, to do and sort of cut and chop sort of this land business. But yeah, you're sort of creating the terms on your own.
That makes sense. So I have some experience on the mineral buying side. So, starting out in my career, I did invest in minerals at the beginning before I really kind of transitioned more into the consulting and advising and education side of things. But my experience was, sending out direct mailers and letters and things like that. It was a very low success rate. Is that what you're seeing in the land side? Like how many, for every 100 postcards you send out, or 1,000 postcards, how many opportunities are you identifying, and how many deals are you closing? And just in general, what do some of the numbers look like?
I think we're sort of ranging around like 1,500 for a deal, but for us, it's worth it, right? I don't know what the sort of the sort of margins are, but for us, we may spend upwards of $500 to $1,000 on a mailing campaign, but that'll get us a property where we'll net, and that's our biggest spend, right? Where we'll net 10 to 20 to 30,000. So it's sort of worth it. Now, other people are also exploring different methods as well, with cold calling and mass texting. And although mass texting is sort of in the gray area right now, they will sort of go through some of those different marketing channels. But the margins are still really worth it when it comes to land. But then again, it really depends. Like, you really have to get that deal done in order to. So, starting out of the gate, you want to understand that it does take time to ramp up, because you're going to learn, which areas are going to work and which areas are not going to work. And then once you find that little pocket, you're probably going to stick in that area for a while, maybe for a couple of years, or while during that couple of years, you may slowly start exploring different areas as well. So. But yeah, it's sort of worth it in terms of us sort of doing that marketing spend.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I assume, like you said, you stick to an area that or maybe pick an area that you're interested in and learn about the opportunities there, and then just sort of stick with that area and then, prove that it works, I guess. So I know in like the online business space, they always say, hey, all you have to do is find one person that'll want to buy your product and service to prove that, that you have a market there. And I assume it's the same kind of thing for the land side, I like your advice of finding where people are buying properties or selling properties. That shows that there is activity there. Maybe there's some interest and ability to turn that, property into a profit. So look where people are already spending their money or investing. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. And maybe you want to look at a smaller lot. So again, you don't risk a lot, and it's up to you. And one thing I like about working where other people are working is, hey, if I need to offload, I can talk to somebody else that I know is in that area. They can take that off my hands, or who knows, they might be able to give me advice or partner with me on future properties and whatnot. So I am never afraid to tell other people, yeah, look at where other people are working out of.
So you mentioned a little bit about this, but just to understand, like, a lot of people are spending their own money, I assume, but like, can you get financing? And like, if you were to get financing for a land deal, is that based on the metrics of that deal, or is it basically your personal credit that is they're using to underwrite that loan? Like, can you talk about like financing and like what does that look like?
Typically, we'll work with like specific land funders. There's a bunch of them that have capital and they're specifically in the area of land because they're going to look at the deal size. They're going to look at the actual deal to see if they actually want to fund that deal. And so one of the interesting things, I haven't actually announced this yet, but within our platform, there's going to be the ability to get funding now as well. So, but that does have to go through a process of, there's going to be due diligence that needs to be done and it needs to meet certain requirements. But yeah, this is quite common. And it really depends who you're working with, but typically funding is from land specific funders, unless you've got private money or something like that.
That makes sense. So they kind of understand the business already
Exactly.
and know what they're looking for.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, let's transition to the Pebble platform. You mentioned a little bit about it already, but what is Pebble and how does it help land investors manage their business?
Yeah. So one of the things about land investing is it's just a really messy business. Like we're dealing with tens and hundreds thousands of property records. You can imagine, we're doing all this marketing and we're hoping to find a deal, right? And so there is a lot of property that we're dealing with. But just because I did a mailing campaign to 5,000 owners doesn't mean I'm not going to mail them again. A lot of them actually will get back to us a year or two later saying, yeah, I kept your postcard. But we want to keep track of everything. And maybe we want to remarket that list. We send them a letter in January and maybe we want to cold call them in June and just see if they're interested. And so we're constantly marketing. And there are people out there that want to offload their property. Maybe it's just not the right timing. And so again, we're dealing with thousands of property records. And as soon as those people call in, it used to be spreadsheets where I have to find my file of those properties, the 1,000, then I have to hit Control F and look for their APN or their parcel number. Pebble makes that very easy. As soon as they call in, you can pull that property up immediately. You can start doing your due diligence within the platform. So we've got a mapping system in there where you can look at road access, flood zones, and whatever. Then I need to get out an offer immediately to that person saying, hey, I looked at it. Great. I'd like to offer you, 10,000 on your property, on your 5-acre property. That is all done seamlessly inside of Pebble. You can do your due diligence, then send that, contract out or offer out with direct mailing or through email or whatever, or communicate with them through texting. We're always constantly talking to these owners to get them across the finish line. So Pebble really centralizes all of that. It used to be you had to have a phone system and then mail merging on Microsoft Docs and then spreadsheets, tons of spreadsheets, and then maybe a CRM like Trello or Airtable to make notes on it and track where it is on the acquisition, because maybe you're just in the due diligence. Then you got to track that it's going through offer and then it's in title or whatever. But you're dealing with, again, maybe 5 of these a day or maybe 5 of these a week or something. But you need to track. It gets messy very quick. And then also doing your mass marketing, like I said earlier, sending 2,000 letters out. That's very easy within our platform. So we streamline this whole sort of acquisition side of things. And this is why I mentioned earlier, we've worked with Mineral Rights Company as well. They're sort of doing the same thing. They're blasting out to certain owners for certain things. That can all be handled inside of Pebble, and you're sort of tracking each property along the different stages. And then once you acquire that property, you're going to maybe do some project management. Do you want to subdivide on that? Maybe you want to do some marketing and get drone footage done. So you're tracking that all inside of Pebble. It's sort of a very simple way to track everything, and it's a nice and clean way that is very, very powerful. Tools like automated follow-ups. Follow-up is big for us. Somebody showed interest, but then they're like, they don't pick up their phone the next time. Well, we can send them a text reminder or an email reminder or send them another letter. And we get these deals done. I know it sounds like, dude, you guys do a lot of marketing. It is a marketing game, and but it works, and it works at scale. So that's what sort of Pebble does. It sort of keeps all that organized for you to run your land business.
I know from experience with the Excel spreadsheets and the Word documents with the mail merges, that was kind of how I was running it. And that was hard to keep, it's certainly like following up and knowing, okay, okay, I sent the person the first letter here in my Excel spreadsheet, and then like having automate, there's no automation there. It's just manually you're doing everything.
Exactly.
So I'm sure sounds like you've looked at opportunities to improve that and sort of integrated all that into one sort of
Exactly.
streamlined process, which sounds like really is necessary for this to work at scale, like you said, to make a full-time
Yeah,
situation, right? So I guess you could,
exactly.
So that's very interesting. So let's talk about the typical users. So you have are there lots of large groups like PE backed companies that use your platform? You have a lot of individuals. I know you mentioned a mineral buyer or two.
Small teams, solopreneurs, maybe partners and a small, couple other people on their team. Maybe they're helping with general admin or and whatnot. And a lot of solopreneurs. It's a very small scaled, lean kind of a business. Uh, Definitely PE does not get involved. So those are our general sort of most common users. Some are doing it part time. They enjoy just doing it part time. Some they want to just do a couple deals a month, maybe a couple deals a quarter. Some want to do 2-3 deals a week. So it sort of ranges all over the place. But I think for most people, they're getting 2 to 3 deals a month type of thing.
Very cool. And then you mentioned, I know when we spoke before that you had a couple of users that were in the mineral space.
Yeah.
So, like, how are they using the platform? And I guess how does it
Yeah.
potentially help folks that are wanting to invest in mineral rights, as well?
Yeah, so from what I remember is they were sort of a mid-sized company looking for properties that have mineral rights, and then they already have a list of properties, and they wanted to do their marketing, and they're doing the exact same thing. Their language and is different on their marketing, but because they're dealing with it's only like hundreds of property, not thousands, but they wanted to make it easy to do marketing. They were working with traditional mail houses, and they're not tracking things. Our system, it's like property based tracking, specifically land. So it made a lot of sense for them. And so yeah, that's sort of what they were doing. And we're also working with renewable energy companies now too that are looking to get the rights to the surface. Maybe they want to look for farmers and do what they call agrivoltaics and reach out to farmers only and track on that. And they're maybe the brokers in between helping the development companies set up or get the property so that they'll pass it over to the developers to build the solar panels and the projects on there. But yeah, it's really interesting. It's become sort of a platform specifically around folks who want to acquire land, and this is sort of where Pebble is now going. It's not just for land investors; it's sort of like a land acquisition platform now.
Yeah, all aspects of land, right? This surface and minerals and everything in between. So
Exactly.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Where can people go to find out more about the platform? If they were interested in saying, okay, I'm interested in getting to the land space. I want to dip my toes. Like, how can this help automate it? I work at full-time job, and I need to be able to do this on nights and weekends. I need to get started in that space in that way. So
I think there's just so much free resources now on YouTube, like land flipping, land investing. There's some free courses out there now. But I think a great place to start is just our podcast. Like, listen to some of these people and what they're doing, because I simplify the podcast quite a bit. I keep it nice and simple for anybody to understand. So if you head over to the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast, that's a great place to start. And to start understanding land, and maybe you'll hear a guest or two, but I'm sure on YouTube you can just type in land investing, land flipping, and go down that rabbit hole and learn about land investing.
Cool. Yeah. And I'll link to the show in the show notes as well. So anybody listening, if you want to check out Jessey's podcast, we'll put that at mineralrightspodcast.com. Just look for this episode, and then, also some of the other resources that Jessey mentioned at the beginning. We'll link to that as well.
Awesome.
And then, Pebble, where do they go to find out about that?
Yeah, just PebbleREI.com. We're going to be in the middle of choosing a different domain because we're not, again, only for real estate investing, but that's what REI stands for. But yeah, you can start there, PebbleREI.com.
Perfect. And if you just if you don't know where to go, just again, go to mineralrightspodcast.com/Pebble, and we'll link to that as well. We'll just redirect that so where to go. Even if that changes, it'll always be link into Jessey's platform. So, so Jessey, anything else that you want to mention before, that we haven't already covered before we wrap up?
Yeah, I hope I didn't I always feel bad to like that I sold the model to people. Like it is a business. It requires time. There's no magic. It's just like any other business. Yes, the margins can be great, but it does require work. So I do want to make that note as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess like anything, nothing in life is free. There's no free lunch, right? So
Exactly.
You got to put in the work and learn but then there's always opportunities out there, and it's exciting to hear about this particular opportunity for those that are interested and if it makes sense. And so again, we'll link to Jessey's site and to his podcast in the show notes. Jessey, is there a place that people, if they have questions or want to reach out, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can, let's see here, comment on the YouTube videos that comes through to me, or heck, if you want to email me directly, Jessey@PebbleREI.com. That's Jessey with the EY, so JESSEY. And just reach out. That comes directly to my assistant, but I go through those emails with her on a daily, so I'll see that.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights in land investing. It was fun to learn about that space, and look forward to having you back on the show to hear an update of what you're doing. It sounds like some exciting things with Pebble, and also sounds like it might be a great tool and resource for those that are in the minerals and royalties space as well, investing in that side. So thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks very much for having me on, Matt.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening to the Mineral Rights Podcast with your host, Matt Sands. Don't forget to subscribe and share at mineralrightspodcast.com. The Mineral Rights Podcast should not be construed as investment, legal, or tax advice. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy.